There's a vast amount of racism in American film, but this might be one of the most racist films we've done.
No, your religion is actually just manipulating people and leading people into unjust wars for no good reason other than keep the rich rich. Whoa, man, mind blown.
But you're not thinking like a capitalist there.
I'm not. That's always been my problem.
It's a nice liberal nationalist movie where the president can go blow up aliens with a jet fighter, and yet you're still not actually being xenophobic. It's kind of amazing.
The whole QAnon universe, I was like, this seems ripe for them to grab onto one of these two movies and totally miss the point.
Yes.
And they have.
You know, the best they really have is like gentrification and real estate speculation in hospitals.
Yeah, that's Cleveland in a nutshell right there.
Fuck capitalism. Fuck all of this stuff. It is a movie that should be watched by organizers and radicals and leftists and anybody who wants to make a better world. This movie, on the other hand, means none of those things.
It's a Franken blockbuster, like you said, and it's put together in sequences that play out like movie trailers.
Really regressive gender politics, like incredible, but to the point of near parody.
No, Norm, George Wendt in this movie definitely would have been wearing a MAGA hat if this movie was made nowadays.
Oh, God, right? And then convince the workers to break their own picket.
Yeah.
Fuck this movie. It's,
Damn, I wish this movie was better, because that's a kick-ass ending.
This is a paint-by-numbers propaganda movie that completely works because the characters are compelling and real.
Welcome all to the Politics of Cinema. On this show, we believe that films are never neutral. There's a political as well as artistic message captured, on purpose or on accident, in every film, in every country, in every time period. We're on the lookout for all of it. My name is Aaron Spears.
And my name is Isaac Miller. And on this episode, it's Noirvember. So we're talking film noir and capitalism. Specifically, we're going to be focusing on Jules Dassin's Night in the City from 1950. And then both of us recommend some other titles that exemplify I had to screw up something, the noir and capitalism intersection.
It wouldn't be an intro if we didn't misread something, Isaac.
Well, it's usually me. You actually screwed up a little bit there, which is really exciting for me.
Yeah, but I cut that part out.
God damn it. This is why I need to do the editing.
No, it's like we said, when you're reading the script for the intro, it's different than when you're just chatting about the film, so...
It's funny. This is a theme that I've wanted to do for a long time. I have to admit, full disclosure, that the original idea was to be a lot more expensive. We're done. Hey, did you know that...
And that was off the cuff. That wasn't even part of the script.
Yeah, here's the thing is did you know that I'm in a PhD program and it's a quarter system and it's nearly the end of the quarter and I am dead there's nothing in me. Originally, the idea behind this was to actually look at 4 movies over 2 episodes. There's a theme that's very dear to my heart. Maybe we'll look at some of those movies more closely later on because I think there's a lot going on here. But we're gonna talk about a few different, focusing on Night in the City, which, if you remember, very early in this podcast we talked a little bit about.
Did we?
Yeah, we did in the first, before COVID.
Okay.
Actually, maybe it was like right when COVID was happening. We talked a little bit about it. We didn't do like a full episode on it though.
It probably came up because we were talking. We were doing covert. No, I can't talk. We were doing COVID comfort cinema episodes. There was definitely some. We did a couple film noirs in there. It probably came up.
And this is my favorite noir, my favorite classic noir, certainly.
Gotcha. Well, so that's, obviously, Noirvember is a fun gimmick, but anything that gets people watching film noir movies is great. Actually, we have a display up at the library I work at in our audio video section. The size of it is I always joke there is a legit video store in the library I work at because it's massive. But then also depends on your age if you know what a video store is or not. But we put up a Noirvember display and we are restocking that like every day. It's a topic that people are either interested in or like, oh, I forgot about that movie, or oh, I always wanted to see that movie. And they go down so easy, as I was telling you before recording, Isaac. Like I just keep putting them on at night before going to bed, and then I end up staying up like 3 more hours because I can fit in 2 movies.
Yeah. Specifically, when you're talking about classic noir, they're short, they're sweet, they're formula. I think I said when we first talked about this, part of my affinity for this, or what hit me when I first started really getting into noir, was that I watched Batman the Animated Series in the early 90s when I was a really little kid. It was the first ground my parents gave. Maybe it was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles where you're not going to watch cartoons with violence. And it's like, oh, this one looks really good. And it's like, yeah, it is. But part of it is all of the visual language from that comes from classic 40 cinema, and specifically, maybe not all of it, but like most of it comes from classic 40 cinema, a lot of it film noir.
Oh, for sure.
And the plot structures come from film noir. Like the
Mhm.
villains are film noir villains. And it embedded in me very deeply. And then when I started watching actual like 40s film noir, I was like, oh, I know this. This feels very resonant for me.
Yeah. That is a very unique in to classic film noir, but it's entirely accurate though too. Like as soon as you said that Batman the Animated Series, I was immediately picturing like the very, Gothic buildings, the sharp shadows, and like the whole color scheme, the old cars, the justice coming from outside the law rather than inside the law, or as a combo of two. Like it's all there.
Well, and part of it is what I love. One of the things I love about noir is that I find it as a way to cope with the fallen world, fallen quote unquote. Let's not get that in there, but like it's a way. These are the basic formula is usually somebody with a fatal flaw which they can't escape, and that drags them down. And it may be a systemic thing, or it may be personality, or a combination of both, or whatever. Which is why it's perfect for Batman villains, right?
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of times they were painted as very sympathetically. But I feel deep resonance with that. I mean, this is when we first covered this. Just I keep coming back to this. Listen to the original episodes if you didn't. This is when I made the argument. We watched The Night Comes for Us, which is the Indonesian martial arts movie, and said this is a film noir as well, which it is.
Yeah.
So like, I think there's a reason it both goes down easy, but it also hits us very deeply as a genre, right? It captures, especially at this moment, in some ways, it captures the need to cope. And sometimes coping involves just accepting that things are fucked.
Yeah, it's interesting the way you word it that way, because that I have also been watching. I've been watching a lot of classic noir, but I've also been watching, the more like if it's the classic period's what, like 45 to 60 roughly, 1945, 1960,
Yeah.
and specifically as an invention of the Hollywood studio system at the time too. It's a very American cinema invention, although of course, like all great American films, it was a pattern that was discovered by a French film critic. And that's why it has a French word in there. And it's not just dark film, it's film noir, which also sounds cooler.
Yeah. So this is sort of our second episode really exploring film noir, but it's been a couple of years. So last time we covered Akira Kurosawa's Drunken Angel and They Made Me a Fugitive, which is a very good British noir. And I think there we were exploring them as part of post-war reconstruction, right? These are both movies that were very embedded in that. So now we're going for a more
broken societies again, like you're talking about, or broken by war rather than what we've got right now. But
yeah, exactly, broken societies.
Yeah.
So now we're covering something else. We are covering Noir and Capitalism.
So I wanted to ask you about this because this was a topic you mentioned to me. Like actually, it was back, I think, when we were both working at the same art house theater back in the day. And, when you think of film noir, there are specific narrative beats, but also thematic elements, visual. There's not quite paint by numbers, but there are elements that film noir has. You got crime, sure. You've got a femme fatale. Yup. Those deep, dark shadows and like a rain-soaked alley. Yup, absolutely. And as soon as you point out capitalism, it's in every film noir I'm watching. Like there's an element in there where you're like, oh, it's like, but it's so ingrained in people's mind and in, I guess, like modern society that we're stuck in here that like, it doesn't even come up as like, that's in every film noir.
Yeah. I mean,
why isn't this part of the checklist?
I mean, I think, part of it is I don't see it in the same way in every film noir. I mean, the ones that I picked out here are, let's just say it's, my views, my sort of picking these out is much cruder because it's literally that the conflict that the person may be having is something very embedded within capitalism or something where they're making a commentary on it. Night in the City, I mean, we'll get into that, but very much this is somebody who is driven by the way that sort of, by capitalism, sort of the class structure, right? And the way that you get entrapped in a particular position and can't get out. He is driven by the need to be somebody, to have status within this system, to the point at which he can't let go. And he's also driven by that speculative zeal that capitalism creates within people, right? The constant sort of scheming and attempting to like get rich, which really only works for a few people, and is sort of an ideological illusion, because by and large, people who actually are able to make their speculative zeal work had money in the first place.
Well, I was gonna say, it works on both ends in a lot of these film noirs, where one, people either like need money, which rightfully so. Like a lot of these are like low level street hustlers who are like trying to get the next meal. You know what I
Right.
mean? Or like just to literally just keep breathing and survive.
Right.
But then also, yeah, you have like when it's intertwined with like, gangsters within society, or like that black market idea. Yeah, that's a bit more on the higher end, which is some of the other ones I was watching too. But yeah, it's like it's you get you on both ends of that.
Right. And so like, it's should we you want to start before we talk about Night in the City? Want to just list off some of the other ones we were thinking about? Like switch things around a little bit?
If you want to.
Yeah, I mean, you can find like those themes in, I think, most film noir, partially because we just live in a capitalist society and this is about fallen people, right?
Mhm.
But I was thinking of like a movie like Never Let Go from 1960, where one, you get to watch Peter Sellers be really creepy, which
Mhm.
is a lot of fun.
What are you ones?
I want my car.
Do you think I've got it?
I know you've got it.
The police don't think so, do they, Cliff?
No. They will. By the time I've finished.
You realize I could have you for breaking and entering, don't you? I should think you'd probably get about 2 years. Still, I'm a reasonable sort of a fella, you know? Have a look around for your car. Go on, try and find it. Come on. Right, are you satisfied? Now get out.
But also part of it is this is, set in Britain, if I remember correctly, and, a period of sort of like burgeoning mass consumption in which this person is falling behind at work, cannot make it, and has his car stolen. Well, this car is both a symbol of sort of consumerism and whatever, but it's also his vehicle to survive, right? It's part of how he's entrapped within a system that forces you, capitalism. I mean, one of the most basic characteristics is that everybody, more or less everybody, it's more complicated, but like depends on the market broadly to survive, right?
Right.
And so this car is his lifeline, but it drives him to such a level of obsession, both through the conversation of sort of like a combination of like his need to make it within this system as he's sort of falling behind. You don't want to be a loser, but like literally you need to eat. But then also like this is sort of a commodity with like real meaning and cachet in like 1960. And so he drives himself to annihilation. Now, one of the things for me about noir is it's unfortunate in classic noir that they don't get to have unhappy endings as often as they should. One of the great things about Night in the City is spoilers for a 70-year-old movie. Spoilers, because you should watch it if you haven't. Spoilers, it doesn't end well. But like, it's, I think, a lot of them, they have like a last minute happy ending. Something like Nightmare Alley, they like have to give it, this is because of censorship, right? Nightmare Alley, I feel like what they actually do is give it what seems like a happy ending, but it's not. But they have to code it. The film language says it's a happy ending, but the plot says, I think they're just fucking with you. But yeah, so like I thought about a bunch of different movies where this is very specific. So something like Underworld USA from 1961, but also Point Blank from 1967, which is more of a neo-noir. Both of them are sort of, this is a period in which sort of like the large multinational is coming into being, right? Massive consolidation. And so these are both sort of the underworld and sort of and gangs as big business, right?
I told you once we had a national setup, we could form a government of our own inside the USA. And we did. But we won't stay big if we lose our grip.
The guns of gangland speak and tell the story of today's march of crime. Excitement that rips through the curtain of organized vice. The labor rackets, gambling, drug traffic, and the big bosses who govern this empire of evil.
There they are. That's my job. Now those are the 3 punks I'm gonna get. Punks? You call them punks? Why, they're better got it than the President of the United States. And you're going to get them?
Here, too, is the story of people caught between the law and the lawless.
Call him and tell him I'll pick it up and I'll deliver it. Call him and tell...
Living as though every minute could be their last.
Some women, when they kiss, blush. Some swear, some bite, some laugh, some cry. Me, I die.
So there's a particular angle on sort of the capitalism of that moment from there.
Oh, for Underworld USA?
Yeah.
That's an interesting one because that one ties into two that I watched because I also watched a Sam Fuller one, which Underworld USA is a Sam Fuller one. But one of the taglines for Underworld USA is a sensational film that puts the finger on today's biggest business, ... crime. Yep. And I watched I watched several South Korean gangster films because I just sort of fell into that pattern. And then I was like, okay, I need to watch more of these. I watched one called New World from 2013, which at this point, I guess the most famous actor in that one is Lee Jung-jae. I'm probably mispronouncing that one because he stars in Squid Game right now. So people are finding this one, and when they're looking for more of his movies, it's the same story. Lee stars as an undercover cop who has his loyalties tested because he goes undercover in, it's literally a corporate gang. Like, it's known by the cops that these are gangsters that are running a corporation, an international corporation in South Korea. They've just like gone legit, and there's a vie for power when the head of that corporation is killed or dies.
And so they fight it out gangster style as opposed to the way you would in a
no, but like they're
boardroom.
also having meetings in boardrooms, and they have to elect the new like leader of this corporation, but like the board of directors is there. And I was like, it's really weird. It's that story that they do a little bit within the TV show The Wire, where they end up just, we got to get all these gangs together and mark out our territories and all this other stuff and stop all this stupid fighting. We're drawing too much heat from the cops. We need to legitimize this thing. But like, it's such a perfect like crisscross of, okay, these are all like, and it's very violent, and there is, murders and killing going on, but it's all about the criminal underworld. But it also ends up being like, he has the choice to make. At what point when am I undercover? Am I just now a gangster working at this corporation? And where do my allegiances lie? And, obviously the cops, like his handler is, a gruff dude who always kind of bullies him around. And you're like, you're supposed to be taking care of this guy. Like, if there's nothing pulling you in that like legitimate, quote unquote, legitimate, like cop direction, why wouldn't you just embrace gangsterism? Like, there's more money there, there's more power there, there's more respect there. And it ends up being really, really fascinating. There's a few of these South Korean ones I watched that kind of all play around with that, with their narrative. There's one, it has a lot of tinges of film noir called The Gangster, the Cop, and the Devil, where it's like a gangster and a cop team up to go after a serial killer who targeted the gangster. But like, it's more like legitimate, like the legitimate law enforcement within society can't actually work to take this guy down. It has to be more the underworld, but then it's a race to see if the gangsters catch him first, he's going to kill him because it was attempted murder on the head gangster, the head of this gang, versus if the cop gets him, like, well, I'm gonna throw the cuffs on him and take him in.
I've actually seen that one. Yeah, it's so funny. I feel like that movie doesn't totally work. Like, it's not like the best. Let's say it's certainly not the best Korean crime movie I've seen or whatever, but it's so well made at a craft level that it, like, you can kind of live with it just fine.
Yeah, you look past a lot of the structural problems within the screenplay, but still a solid one. But it's the mafia as a corporation, like literally, like legitimately a corporation in this. It's not like we're meeting in, Scorsese style, like back of a butcher shop or whatever to like plot our criminal conspiracies. They're like in boardrooms and they own office buildings and skyscrapers.
I mean, there's a particular angle, and this goes beyond film noir. I mean, The Godfather is like this, right? The Godfather trilogy is doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the other angles does this go for? I mean, we're going to talk about Night in the City in more detail, which I think deals with these things at another angle, right? I mean, but like, so let's say a movie like Mildred Pierce, which is a really fascinating film noir because it's spliced with a women's picture, right?
Mildred, a name gasped in the night, the one last word of a dying man, but one word that tells 1,000 stories of a woman who left her mark on every man she met.
Mildred had more to offer a man in a glance than most women give in a lifetime.
Mildred knew what she wanted. It wasn't too particular how she got it.
Mildred? Loving her was like shaking hands with the devil.
You know, it's starring Joan Crawford, who's like amazing. But basically, she's a housewife whose families fall apart. Like her husband basically can't provide, so they break up. And her obsession is basically her daughter, who, I mean, the younger daughter dies, but like the older daughter, basically giving her whatever she didn't have. So she literally starts a restaurant empire basically in order to do this, and continues to make compromises and do things, basically become a large scale capitalist out of an obsession with winning our daughter over. But her daughter is horrible. There's no way this can happen. So part of the daughter is the femme fatale.
I was going to say that means yeah, okay, that's weird. Yeah. That's an interesting twist though, for like 45. Like the genre is just being born right now.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, right? It's really early for this. And it's, I mean, she's an absolute femme fatale. She's actually one of the worst femme fatales I've ever seen. She's horrible. I mean that in a good way. She's a great femme fatale, but she's like legitimately just the worst person. And it's, you know, but it's exploring the sort of things that sort of drive, you know, that sort of the underlying psychology that drives status, because part of what's going on is that, and class structure, because part of what's going on is that they have sort of like an upper middle class existence prior to their husband falling apart. He's like a realtor or something like that. And basically the daughter is spoiled rotten and has an expectation to be at the height of society. Right.
Yeah.
And so the drive, it's the drive for upper mobility for appearances, because the daughter basically wants to be the leisurely rich. And so anything involved, I mean, she looks down on her mother. She looks down on her mother even for working, right? But the work that got her where she is.
Yeah.
I mean, all of this comes once again with sort of the unfortunate, well, not unfortunate, the deeply structural. I mean, this comes with like a black servant and the whole thing, right? So we can. I mean, that's both an obvious thing in a 40s movie, but you know, it's there. But it's an interesting angle. So it's, you know, because there's any organized crime, there's a murder. Won't get into it. It's worth seeing. It starts with the murder, but then you get to find out why that all happened, because it's all in flashback from a police station. But, you know, I mean, part of the thing is, so yes, there's these classic elements of film noir, but from the very beginning, there's far more than that, right? It's far more than Sam Spades.
Right.
And so, I mean, like this sort of angle on it, you know, and there's Western noirs, right? Like in the 40s.
Oh, yeah.
And certainly in the 50s. So that's sort of another angle of sort of like looking at how class structure and status works, not from the angle of sort of the corporation on down, but like the striving on up, which is really what Night in the City is about too. Are there other ones that you'd like to highlight from like what you've been watching recently?
One of the other ones, I was going to try to keep it more with classic noir for the time being. I'll do the other one. I mentioned I went the mafia as corporation with New World, the South Korean film. But the other one I mentioned was that was a tie-in, because you mentioned Underworld USA, is Sam Fuller. I don't think I'd ever watched Pick Up on South Street from 1953, also featuring the phenomenal Richard Widmark.
From the bright lights of Broadway through the subway undergrounds to the gutters of South Street, they followed this woman, the bee girl who became a sitting duck, to track down her man with a caress, a kiss, and a promise. As the whole underworld joins in a scorching counterblast against the spy menace in Pick Up on South Street. Starring Richard Widmark as Skip, the pickpocket who got his fingers into everything. Jean Peters as Candy, the bee girl, who could be so sweet for the right information. Thelma Ritter as Mo, the stoolie. Even in her business, she drew the line somewhere.
This one just pushed all the right buttons for me. Like, I was ready because it was Sam Fuller and it was Richard Widmark. So yeah, they're doing Pick Up on South Street, 53. So this is, you know, at it's, you know, kind of the height of film noir here through the 50s. And this one is, he plays a pickpocket who inadvertently picks up microfilm that was going to, I guess, like a communist network within New York City, So the cops want to get him. Commies want to get him as well too. And then also the woman Candy, who he pickpocketed from, she's trying to get back because she was being trailed by the FBI. So you've got like, it's all these elements closing in on like the lonely pickpocket. Skip McCoy, what a perfect film noir name, of Richard Widmark. And he is in classic ordinary man in over his head film noir tropes. You know, he knows what he's doing. He's got the art of the pickpocket. He's got the art of the hustle down. More on that when we get to Night in the City. As a character, like I'm buying all of that from Widmark. And it's amazing. And then in the middle of it, all of a sudden, Thelma Ritter shows up playing a woman who's living on the streets and hustling in her own right, literally just so that she can die a dignified death, which is really kind of fascinating. She reminded me a lot of the character Bubble, again, on The Wire. Maybe, you know, The Wire is on my list of neo-noir now. The character Bubbles in The Wire, he's the guy who's the confidential informant, the snitch, the rat, whatever, out from the streets to the cops for money. But he goes around it a few times and he's like hustling. He's trying to sell hats to people in a few scenes in The Wire. And that's how he can mark people for the cops and they're taking pictures and stuff. Well, in this one, Thelma Ritter is going around to the cops, to people on the streets, to people on construction sites. She's selling ties. Because, like, you know, it's the 50s. Every guy wears a tie everywhere. Even like Skip McCoy in this one is a down on his luck, like penniless pickpocket who lives in a shack literally down by the river. And he still wears a suit and tie everywhere because it's the 50s. And so she's selling ties, and what she does is she uses that to like overhear conversations to get information, which she sells to the cops. So when the cops in the opening scene realize that the person they've been tailing, the FBI realizes the person they've been tailing has had her purse pickpocketed. I don't know if we called it pickpocket when it's a purse, but something stolen from her purse. They bring in Thelma Ritter, and she points out, based on how they saw him pick someone's pocket, who the pickpocket is, because she just knows everybody. And all she's trying to do with all of her hustles is to be able to make sure that she isn't just sent out to like some like pauper's grave, basically. She makes a note of like the such and such field or whatever. It's where they send like the homeless people whose bodies are not claimed at the morgue because she has no one family-wise to claim her. So she wants to make enough money so that she can have a proper burial with a headstone. So she'll have dignity in death because she has, you know, no dignity, so to speak, in life right now. And it's film noir, so it doesn't end well for her. And there's this really great long take where she just kind of tells her killer, like, her life story, what she would really like. And it's like, you're right. Like, I think I actually put in my notes, like, I think this is the first film noir I've actually cried at. Like, she's so heartfelt. And you feel that ache of just like, she just wants some dignity.
God, so there's so many angles on the movie. I need to watch this now. There's so many angles on the movie, including Noir as Red Scare. Because, I mean, the idea of like the New York Communist Party going after somebody is really
oh, they do. They're killing people all over the place in this one.
Yeah, right. Which is like made up. I mean,
I'm not saying it's accurate.
No. This is not a critique of. I mean, it's not a critique of the movie. I mean, it is a critique of the movie, but it's, you know, it's part of it is it's the interesting part about that of covering it is that it's reflective of the image of the Communist Party in the 50s.
Oh yeah.
You know, ruthless saboteurs coming for everything. And it's like, you know, I think they're like a.
Well, I think the other part that put this one over the top for me into like, this is like top 5 film noir I've ever seen, was because it operates in a lot of those grim, dark, tragic, and depressing, fatalistic ways, especially with like Thelma Ritter's character. But by the end of the movie, like Richard Widmark and I'm trying to remember who plays Candy. It's Jean Peters. Like, they end up together. So like, it's not we'll get into Night in the City in a minute. It's not that bleak ending for Richard Widmark. At the end, it's like he outsmarted the FBI, he outsmarted the cops, he outsmarted the dirty commies, and he got the girl. This like lonely pickpocket, you know, does good.
So here's the thing is, and I think after this we should get to Night in the City.
Yeah.
I have trouble with classic noir, and I guess I just said this, but like I have trouble with classic noir when it doesn't end in tragedy. And it doesn't mean there aren't really good ones.
Sure.
It doesn't mean they aren't. But it always like, it's kind of like I have to like adjust myself a little. It's like, you should be dead.
Well, I think what they do with this story, though, I think what Sam Fuller's smart about is he gives you that with Thelma Ritter's character.
Okay, yeah.
As a brilliant side character. And her end, it comes at about the 2/3, maybe a little farther mark, because she's the one who holds the answers to like where everybody lives, who the person is, like who the communists are trying to hunt down Skip McCoy. And like, they know that they can get to him via her. So they go through her.
Yeah, that's fair. I'll watch it. I'm going to take, in the dying embers of this quarter, I'm going to try to throw in a few more classic noirs. And
yeah, I'd put that one. What does it say? I was going to use that radio term. Number one with a bullet, top of your queue. Because also, like I said, it's not a long commitment either. I think it's probably like 80 minutes or something.
This is why when we were working at the movie theater and you get home at 11, and it'd be like film noir or horror,
right?
Because I knew I could watch them relatively quickly.
Yep.
The film noir could potentially, both genres can engage you at the deepest level that cinema can engage you at.
Yeah.
But also, like, they go down real easy.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not watching a 3-hour Tarkovsky movie or something.
Yeah, and it's like I want to.
No, they're great.
Really
I don't push play it. I just don't push play on those at midnight.
It's just not going to happen.
No.
Like I can't do it. So let's go to Night in the City.
Yes.
Do you want to summarize it, or should we plot summarize real quick?
Yeah. I have Letterboxd got a pretty solid synopsis. I have that up here. It's again Jules Dassin, Richard Widmark, again popping up in another fantastic film noir. It says he plays Londoner, although he's clearly not British, but he's Harry Fabian. He's a second-rate con man looking for his angle, looking for his way to make a mark. And after years of putting up with his schemes, his girlfriend Mary becomes finally fed up when he taps her for yet another loan. His latest ploy is to promote an aging Greek wrestler, and make a mark on like the wrestling scene in London. But that obviously goes horribly awry because there's already gangsters running the wrestling circuit in London, and they don't want any sort of new blood coming in. And it's Richard Widmark hustling for like 90 minutes.
The next 120 seconds bring you more action and excitement than most people experience in a lifetime. Rushing at fever pitch out of the Night in the City comes the best-selling novel that intrigued millions, Gerald Kirsch's startling story of London after dark, Night and the City. An intimate and intense picture of a city, and the intruders in the night who live and love and hate under cover of its darkness. Richard Widmark, always fleeing from one affair, always turning to another, working harder than any man that ever lived, but always on the wrong thing. Gene Tierney, who wants only his love.
Who are you running away from now?
Running? Me? Now, you know me better than that.
3 days and 3 nights and not a word from you.
Well, I've been very busy.
For all I knew, you were lying in the gutter somewhere with a knife in your back.
Googie Withers, who wants his kisses.
Just think, Harry, think. We're younger, stronger, healthier than he is. We've got more life in our little fingers than he has in the whole of his body. Oh, Harry, darling, we must have got to get away from him. Please, Harry, please.
Hugh Marlowe, who wants his sweetheart.
Oh, no, you don't. Not again. Every time you talk, you mix me up so I can't think straight for a week. Thanks, Harry.
Anything. Anytime.
Francis L. Sullivan, who wants his life.
You've got it all. But you're a dead man, Harry Fabian. A dead man.
You rat! You double-crosser! You Judas!
Harry! Harry, go back!
Turn me in! Cut my throat for 1,000 quid!
Go back, Harry! I'll get help!
It is. It's incredible. And the more you watch it, the more details you can see of how people react to him. Because he's a fixture of... it's not even gangsters necessarily running wrestling. So there's a Greek businessman, and he uses violence. So it's part of what he is he's in this, all these guys, right? Like the nightclub owner that he deals with, that who's Widmark's sort of boss, right? They're like semi-criminal operations. So like the guy is like basically legit, but no, I take that back. He is kind of a gangster. He's a gangster, but like he's basically, this is the thing is this: he's a legitimate, he's a businessman who owns what he owns.
Yeah.
But the nature of his business means that he's also half gangster, which means he can deploy the underworld if he needs to.
Yeah, he's like strong arming people to make sure nobody gets in on his turf and blah blah blah. He's not, Marlon Brando, the Godfather gangster.
He's a powerful person who can have you killed.
Yeah.
And that's part of business. I think I said this, like the reason I thought of this as noir and capitalism. So Widmark is a character. He's in a relationship with a loving woman who lives in the same place, lives in the same, they live in the same apartment and they work in the same nightclub. And this opening scene is his latest scheme falling apart. It's another gadget. It's another thing. It's another fucking Bitcoin or whatever.
Oh my
right?
God. Oh my God, it is.
Well, no, because that's totally, he's not that type exactly. But part of it is that he's somebody who grew up in the foster system.
Mhm.
He's somebody who was always kicked down, for whom there was low expectations, and what he wants is a life of he's always says a life of ease and plenty, and he specifically wants it for
Them.
for them. It's not actually just about him.
It's true.
Like, very much not just about him. Like, he wants it for them, and she doesn't want it, right? She doesn't actually want this. She just wants, and this is sort of like, if we're going to do a sort of analysis of what the story, what she wants is
Gene Tierney.
And I think she does a fantastic job at
she's
this.
great, yeah.
And so part of what's going on is there's a bit of a love triangle, and I think it's worth getting into this a little. So basically, then their neighbor, who's another American, who's like a designer of sort of like he's an artist who does
like
designs. Ceramics, basically.
Yeah.
And basically seems to have a steady income and is totally on the up and up and is totally in love with her, but also, and this is really smart, never does Harry Fabian, who's Richard Widmark's character, dirty, right?
Right.
In fact, he actually, in the very opening scenes, calls him, here's this con man, right? This ultimate con man, whose day job is working for a nightclub. He's not the ultimate con man because he's not actually that successful, but he is good at it to an extent. But his day job is conning people into going to this nightclub, to go out and find tourists and sort of trick them into going. But basically, he calls him an artist without an art.
Yeah.
So, and that captures so much the inherent noir flaw within this character. But basically, it's this drive for this status, this to fill the hollowness that the society that will not let him find security or get up will. And Gene Tierney's character, Mary, is basically saying all you need to do is get a regular job.
Just get a job.
You don't need to be a big shot. I don't need you to be a big shot. We can have basically the nice, normal, straight life.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm not actually saying at a certain, this is part of the commentary of the film. I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing either, but that's sort of what's being juxtaposed here is the speculative, that he's the embodiment of the speculative drive of capitalism through a broken person, and the way that will ruin your life. And in this case, maybe investing in wrestling is a bad idea. So
well, it's also funny. I hadn't thought about it till you were just describing that opening scene there, but your neighbor who's also an artist is the one with is the stable one with income.
Yeah, he's the one who is income, and part of it is he's mooching off of her, right? So Widmark is mooching off of his girlfriend, and part of it is what she's doing is she's dating an addict.
Right.
He's basically a gambling addict, but the gambling is the con to get to the next big step.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first scene is her having to pull together £5 to get him bought out from his latest scheme because his partner, quote unquote, is going to, is waiting outside the apartment.
Yeah, just chased him back to their apartment.
Right.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to this. I think, so the, I think one of the things that I really love about this is that Francis L. Sullivan, who plays Philip Nosseris, who's the guy who runs the nightclub they work at, is amazing in this.
He has a real strong Hitchcock vibe, as an actor, as a persona.
Yeah.
The way he talks, he's I know, I just kept getting that Alfred Hitchcock Presents, all those intros he did.
Yeah. But part of it is he is a full character with all of his motivations. His wife.
Yeah.
His wife, who basically later on will try to scheme with Harry Fabian to get out from both for their own, as the schemes pile on top of schemes, right? In which basically, Harry is conning this great retired Greek wrestler, the greatest wrestler in the world, whose son runs the wrestling scene and has brought his father over to let him do his legitimate Greco-Roman wrestling while he runs, basically to let his father retire in peace here.
Mm-hmm.
While he runs the showy, over the top wrestling, which his father won't accept. So basically Richard Widmark cons him into being his shield against his son.
Right.
Which is, an incredibly dangerous game. But all of these characters have deep motivations and characterization. So including, let's say, Christo, who's the guy who runs the Underworld. Spoiler, this doesn't end well. Eventually, Gregorius, the Greek wrestler, actually dies. partially as part of one of Widmark's schemes. As they pile, I mean, it's too complex to even go into the plot, but basically he dies. And this scene is incredibly powerful because in just a very short few scenes, they've gotten across that this is a dutiful son who loves his father, will not do what his father wants him to do because he's running this business the way he needs to run it. But that never for a moment, no matter how much his father criticizes him, no matter what, never ever compromises his love for his father in any way. And when he dies, it's actually an incredibly powerful scene. And these are side characters, right?
Yeah.
Everybody is a full character with a full emotional range. And I think that's part of the brilliance of it.
Well, also because the way the narrative unfolds on screen too, like we're with Richard Widmark for the opening scene we just talked about, where he gets, he's chased home by his latest con gone wrong. And then we get to see him in his element working for Phil Nosseros, the nightclub owner, like we just said, and what Fabian's role is in getting clients to come to this nightclub where they get, legitimately fleeced by overexpensive, cigarettes and champagne and all that stuff. But then it seems fairly clear that it's one of those like, well, if you girls want to, go home with any of these guys, just don't steal from them here when you're in the club.
Right.
So it's like, it's a gateway to, fleece these rich tourists for even more money outside of the actual establishment itself. But you get a solid like 25, 30 minutes where it's only with Richard Widmark. And then at the end of the night, when you see like what his quote unquote legitimate job is with this nightclub, then the camera decides to stay and you see Phil, the nightclub owner, and his wife, Helen, and you get to see a little bit of their dynamic for a minute. And it struck me with the first time watching this where I was like, wait, we've been following this main character the whole time. Now we're sticking with these side characters for a minute. And the film brilliantly has these little moments. I think it seems like it's actually, of Jules Dassin's films that I've seen, it's kind of one of his hallmarks where you don't realize that we've kind of let the main character go and we're going to hang out with these characters for a minute. And then the next scene happens, the main character may or may not be there. And then you hang out with these other side characters for a minute. And I think that's what really helps give it a full well-rounded narrative arc for even the side characters, and feel, I don't know, it feels not necessarily more real, but it feels more fully developed.
Yeah.
As a story, because you get these little moments of their characters where not just you only stick with, Sam Spade and the Maltese Falcon. We don't get a lot of extra. Actually, I haven't seen that one in a while, so that may be a bad example, but you know what I mean? It's not just solely that main character story. We open up the narrative a little bit to hang out with these other characters from time to time.
Well, part of it is that this is a complete world.
Right.
Basically, as Widmark, as Harry Fabian attempts to, he has to raise money to start this wrestling business.
Fabian Promotions,
right? But he needs to raise the money, and it's £200, which is vastly out of what he can possibly do. I mean, this is sort of the capitalism part of it too. Is as a small person, he cannot. One, his credit is no good because he's a scamster and everybody knows it. Or it's not even that he's a scamster, it's just everybody knows that his speculative schemes are not going to go anywhere.
It starts off as a hilarious montage because he goes to all of the people he would normally go to borrow some money. And it's kind of funny at first, but then it turns very depressing because you're like, oh God, this guy's had how many schemes that nobody's fallen for anything anymore.
Yeah, it's it's all gone. It's his credit is gone, his credibility is gone. And so Nosseros basically says, well, it's all part of us. There's a scheme by Nosseros' wife. We can't even get into it. But basically, he has to raise £200. And there's no way he can do this. I mean, ultimately, she ends up helping him behind it actually doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter and you should see it. But yeah, part of it is it's another clever way of building another round of world building in, because everybody he tries to borrow from. So you've seen everybody he sees on the street, then you see everybody's around. And then you're going to see these people again when he's on the run, because when Gregorius the wrestler dies, basically in a accidental match, which Widmark has goaded on to try to maneuver the big superstar, showy wrestler into fighting his wrestler. I mean, it's just,
Well, also just to be clear, so Gregorius has this fight, which he does win.
Right.
In the ring. Wins. But then dies of exhaustion in his son's arms.
Right.
So that's what's great. It gives, that's great, but it gives Fabian his victory, which is what he was going for, but at the cost of someone's life.
And then everything, right?
Well, because part of it is right there in that scene, though. Okay, well, you got your win, but this is not going to end well.
Well, part of it is what he's trying to do in that scene is he's trying to go this in, and he doesn't actually want to fight there, right? Like he wants it to be a fight in the ring, but he needs them to actually have a grudge for it to happen. And it's not supposed to be between Gregorius. It's supposed to be Gregorius' student who's actually like a operating wrestler. Gregorius is retired. Like that's the point, is like this is an old man. And so when he dies, it means actually he's over. Like this is when the whole scheme falls apart.
Right.
Because once that's happened, Christo will have him killed. And so you end up with the last 30 or 40 minutes of the movie with him just running the entire time.
Yes.
Through the streets of London. It's absolutely incredible as the dawn comes up.
Well, and Christo has put out like a 1,000-pound bounty on his head. So like the entire underworld is like, oh, that guy? Yeah, well, let's get him.
Yeah, we'll totally get him. And it's like, that's just it. It's like he keeps going to friends and like people will not shelter him under these conditions. No. And meanwhile, his girlfriend and the artist are trying to find him. So here's the thing is this is not like your classic spam spade noir, but I think it's a perfect noir because it is his fatal flaw, which is functionally an addiction to capitalism, right? To the speculative nature of capitalism, drives him onward past the point of his brilliance, which he is in many ways as a con man, to the breaking point. And then it is one of the most dramatic falls I've ever seen in a classic noir. And then we get our final, basically your final scene as the dawn is coming up, as they're closing in on him. Mary finds him and just wants to say goodbye, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just wants a moment where he gives up on all of these things, like basically gives up on his addiction for just a moment and just, has a proper moment. And he starts scheming again.
Yep.
He can't stop.
One last
attempt at a con, because what he says is, well, you turned me in. You should be the one who gets the money anyway, right? This way, you'll be rich. You'll have a life of plenty. It's a foolproof plan. It's a foolproof plan. It has to work. And she just walks away from him. It's like you really think that this dream that you've had of making it is more important than my emotional connection to you,
right?
Like, because you live everything through this. It's just it's really powerful. And he runs after her. He literally pushes her, runs, and gets murdered by the Strangler, the wrestler who he goaded on to kill Gregorius.
Yep.
It's with Christo watching on a bridge. It's a stunning scene, and it captures the full theme of the film more. I don't know.
You're accurate. It's like the Strangler catches him, kills him, chucks him in the river. Strangler gets arrested. Police arrive, and then Christo just walks away. Empire intact.
Yep.
Yeah, it's one of the way that I was saying, like the Thelma Ritter's death in Pick Up on South Street, the way like that emotionally affected me. This ending, like I wasn't crying at the end of this one because it just seems like the inevitable ending that you knew. Like if you've seen some film noir, you're like, oh, this is not going to end well. And then also we spoiled it, so obviously it doesn't end well. But it's a narratively satisfying ending, but also you just feel exhausted, or I did at least. Like the first time watching this, like it's that it's 1950 when it ends. It's just body in the river. Cops arrest the Strangler. Christo walks away. Hard the end. No credits because the credits are at the front, and the movie's over. And you're just like, whoa.
And Mary ends up with the artist, probably.
You assume, if you want to have a happy ending, I mean, that's a fan fiction ending, but yeah.
Well, it's not. They have chemistry.
No. It's possible, but like you don't see that in the movie. Is all I meant. So you don't quite see it. Isaac's Night in the City fan fiction.
It's not. It's implied in the film. It's there. Come on.
Fan fiction sequel is.
He practically goes in for the kiss earlier in the movie, and she's totally attracted to him.
Yeah.
Also, he's also the stable dude she's looking for, right?
the stable artist who lives next door.
Well, he's who can't make pasta because it's 1950 and pasta is like new, I guess. I don't know.
Okay, I was baffled by that scene because I didn't know if it was like a trope for like, oh look, he can't cook, but I was like, it's boiling noodles. How hard was it? I didn't even think about it. I wonder what was it like to make pasta back in the 50s?
Yeah, I could be wrong about this. I think like the history of Italian food, I don't know about I think it's a relatively recent, certainly in the UK, it wouldn't have been like, it's like kind of a new thing. I could be wrong.
It has to be because otherwise like it's too comical.
We get it, dude. You can't cook.
Yeah.
But like, I can't cook. I can do this. No, for me, this is actually the perfect noir.
So one thing I wanted to mention in conjunction with Night in the City is our podcast has been around for coming up on a couple years now, I think, and we haven't really repeated directors because there's a shitload of directors throughout the history and the world of cinema out there. But this is the second Jules Dassin film we have discussed.
Yes, we did a deep dive on what is frankly another noir.
Yep.
Which is 1968's Uptight.
We did.
Which you can find that. We did a
2 episodes
3
actually on that one.
2, 3 almost.
Oh, 3, yeah, because we had the interview with Mike. Mike Moore about it too. So yeah, go back and check the archives for more Jules Dassin. But this is 1950 Jules Dassin operating in in the UK actually for this one, which is where it's set. What made him go to the UK, Isaac?
Speaking of the Red Scare, so here's the thing about Jules. Jules was a communist up until the pact between the Nazis and the Soviets in 1939 when they carved up Poland and the Soviet Union invaded Finland. A lot of people left around them globally, and he left then. It's part of the waves of leaving. But yes, the man had been a communist, and it is 1950, and the storm clouds are coming. And I'm not sure if he actually went. I'm trying to remember if he went to England because of the Red Scare, but like it's right there. Like this is the last one he's going to make in Hollywood. They're coming for him.
Well, he wanted to shoot it in the UK. Sorry, that was more. I mean, like I also had the answer ready to go.
Okay,
it's we talked about it on the Uptight episode when we talked about Jules Dassin's career, but the Blacklist is. Well, it's shitty, but it's also fascinating because the story goes that in '48, Daryl Zanuck called to let him know he would be blacklisted, but he had enough time to make another movie before that was going to happen.
Oh, that's what. Okay, I'm sorry. It was something like that.
He was blacklisted during the production of Night in the City, which is based on a book. So I'm not sure if they chose to shoot it in London. I'm guessing it was because the book was set there. So that was my presumption of why it was set in the UK. But what happened was he wasn't allowed back on the studio property to edit or oversee the musical score for the film. So it was like, as soon as production wrapped, it was like, okay, now you're blacklisted, which I don't know. That's just such a weird spot to be in.
All right. I did not realize those details here. I was like thinking you had me on the ropes here where I'm like, I don't remember, Aaron. I don't know. Like, the blacklist, right? Like is the blacklist.
Well, it was just idea that like he was like, oh, hey, you're going to be blacklisted, but you want to finish this movie first or whatever. Presuming that was all not like hearsay or whatever, that was actual fact. He's directing this film with this particular story and this plot where like the forces are all kind of moving in all around Fabian for like this large chunk at the end, like you said, like that last half hour or so. I'm curious, like is there more depth to those scenes because like he's clearly aware of what's about to happen to him.
Yes. No, that's just, I was thinking what you're saying is like, is this metaphor? Is this intentional metaphor? Is it not intentional metaphor for what's happening to him as they close in? Yeah. Ooh, that adds a whole layer on there. I mean, I think, when we were initially thinking about Dassin, like, I think we wanted to do a whole series on him. I mean, he's a fascinating guy, and he's one of the, I think, one of the great filmmakers and political filmmakers.
Well, it's also because he's been throughout so many types of, or so many eras. Like this is him operating in like the, 1950. This is like about as peak power as you're going to get for the studio system, making, what would end up becoming through standing the test of time, an absolute classic in the film noir category of that period of like when it was like the studio film noirs. This isn't neo noir. This is straight up amazing film noir work that's being done. But then also he's around by 68 and he's doing, again, as we did in those episodes, a Cleveland set and shot movie that for some reason gets called blaxploitation, but again, like you said, is another straight up like film noir about allegiances. And, well, anyway, you can see our, listen to our Uptight episodes about that. But that's a complete like new Hollywood kind of movie that he made in 68 that looks nothing like Night in the City, other than the film noir connections, I guess.
Yeah, no, he's one of these figures who spans multiple different periods, with a long European period because he can't go back.
Right, and we're not even mentioning like Rafifi or some of like Top Copy or like some of the movies that you think of when you think of Jules Dassin as a director.
Yeah,
or Naked City, another
or the Naked City, which is like so funny. Well, that's the thing. I mean, The Naked City. So this is from other people's analysis of it. The Naked City is sort of funny because it's like kind of not a film noir. It's kind of a procedural with like a film noir like
Oh
hooked
yeah.
in. So it's like it's sort of not, but it sort of is. And procedurals are not quite the same thing. Like film noirs are not just cop movies. But the Naked City is the one that gets a lot more attention. This is obviously a well-respected movie. It is a Criterion. It's whatever. I like it a lot more. I still think it's underrated. I mean, I put this up there with Rafifi as like the height of him.
Yeah. No, you're right. I don't know. We were talking about this ahead of time, and I still don't really have a good answer for why. Like this film is known, Night in the City is known, but I think it's because of how great it is. That like this should be spoken of right along with like Maltese Falcon, Double Indemnity, Night in the City.
Yeah, no, that is. I think that's actually just it, right? Because those are in some ways your purest noirs.
Yeah,
like or the most I mean, out of the past too, but like not I wouldn't say most archetypal, but like yeah, I mean they are sort of like they're the you know the sort of the standard, right?
Right.
I mean, we didn't even talk about Double Indemnity in terms of capitalism, which you could totally do.
So it's interesting you say that because there's a thread that I was getting the whiff of in film noirs, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to articulate this real well or not, but I'm giving it a shot. What is Double Indemnity about, Isaac?
The insurance industry?
Okay. It's about insurance. You're right. And so I also watched the 1946 Robert Siodmak, The Killers, one of Burt Lancaster, I think his first movie, which is really about a life insurance policy being investigated by an insurance investigator. So another insurance one.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, what? Why is it like film noir seems to be like, especially these like big name, you know, archetypical film noir titles, they're either about like hard-nosed private investigators, you know, the Sam Spades out there or whatever, or they're about people investigating insurance scams.
I mean, I think, you know, one thing is it's a good excuse for an investigation.
That must be it, right? Like it's just a good narrative hook.
But I think there's more. I think that is part of it. But I think it's also like if you think about what are your archetypal, you know, what are archetypal types of businesses in the time period, right? What is the office work? What is the thing that's sort of on the up and up or whatever? It's probably insurance, right? Like in the late 40s. I mean, you know, so think about like, let's say The Apartment, right?
Okay.
You know, 1961. And that's an insurance company. You know, that's your
right.
That's your ideal type nameless massive corporation. Now, the one in Double Indemnity is not that, right? Like it's actually seems like a relatively small office. Nonetheless, I think it's like in the 1930s and 40s or the 1940s and 50s at least, drawing on the films that I've seen and not the economic history that I might know because I don't know this. Now I want to look into it or ask around now that
Yeah.
I'm in an academic history department, I want to ask one of the Americanists like, so what is it with insurance in the 40s? Like, is there something going on?
Right.
Here?
Yeah. What's going on there?
But like, it's like, yeah, like I think that's part of it. And yeah, it's a great hook, right? It works really well.
Right. And it just struck me as weird the way, when I was doing a pre-code cinema class, I think we mentioned it when we were talking about Blondie Johnson a bunch of episodes ago, the idea of all these pre-code movies that were set in New York City always featured a chop suey restaurant, like not as a narrative device or as a plot point. It was just like, it was just around and that's where they were going to eat, or mentioning like, oh, let's go get some chop suey. And I was like, oh, I guess that had to have started as a trend at some point. I guess that was when it started.
It's very early, right? I mean, like, look, I mean, I can talk to my mother about going for like the first Chinese food in Cleveland in like probably the late 50s. And it's like not a thing you do. And it's not what we know now. And it's not necessarily good. There may be ketchup involved. And
oh God. Sorry, maybe shiver for some reason.
I don't think so. I might have that story wrong, but like, you know, like these are like these food trends and things.
Yeah.
Once again, like a historian of these things will probably correct us.
That's
but
funny.
like the broader trends, right? Like you're sort of seeing it show up there. Yeah, Double Indemnity is totally something we could have done this on, and I would need to rewatch it and like dig in a little more. But like,
that one, I mean, it's sort of like the idea with the show here usually is like, well, people know Double Indemnity, like that's been covered.
Yeah.
In the City needs more coverage.
By the way, you realize I just my example of The Apartment, that they're both Billy Wilder movies. So really, it's
good point.
So is it just really that Billy Wilder's interested in insurance, or like I don't know, like
his brother was an insurance salesman, so it was always just like a nod to his brother. No, I'm making that up, but
Yeah.
no, that's an interesting.
But you're right. The Killers does deal with it. I've seen The Killers. There was a while there. So so noir was sort of like my go-to genre for a few years. And at the beginning of this year, I started to burn out on it. And I was noticing a lot of especially the 40s noir I would watch were just passing through me. So like The Killers, for instance, like when I watched it, I don't have any memory of it. It just didn't quite catch me. And I think I just watched too many. And I need to go back.
Oh, I definitely know that feeling. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that's why I started on my martial arts kick. This has been the year of Scott Adkins for me. But I mean, honestly, some of the movies that we've mentioned here are ones that I love to cover more in detail later on, which is what we really did with Night in the City, right? Because we talked about it like 2 years ago and then came back for it. But that was always going to happen.
It's also kind of as like a wrap-up thought from my point of view. It's a really fascinating genre to me. And I think maybe this is just how my brain works with most genres. Because I was going to say this for me, film noir to me has the same kind of genre effect on my brain as like musicals do. Because I have a very wide definition of like what a musical is and what a film noir is. And I think blending genres is really kind of an interesting thing that doesn't generally get done within like the Hollywood studio system. Like it's a comedy, it's a drama, it's whatever. But I think, you could take a little film noir, take a little horror, and in my opinion, you've got like Dario Argento's Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Like that kind of counts in my brain as like a film noir, the same way like was maybe controversial. I'd been yelled at for this opinion before, but like Dazed and Confused, I would almost put in a musical genre. They're not singing and dancing, but music, if you take the music out of that movie, you don't have the same movie. Because music is integral to it. So anyway, I'm just saying, like, I have a very wide definition when it comes to film noir. I get that, 45 to 60 is considered like the classic, like that's the film noir period. Everything after that is neo-noir. Fine. And I'm perfectly fine with the neo-noir tag. But, when I was talking about like, New World, that's a 2013 Park Hoon-jung film that I was mentioning earlier about, the corporatization of the mafia. Yeah, that's technically neo-noir, but it has so many beats that are just like that's a film noir beat, that's a film noir beat, that's a film noir beat. That's how you shoot a film.
I mean, it is a film noir. I mean, look, we've talked about this before on this podcast when we were covering the 60s and when we talked about Kurosawa. Some of the best noirs going on at the same time are like 60s Japanese noir, right?
Oh yeah, I watched Take Aim at the Police Van.
Yeah,
another Suzuki film. It's an exemplary film noir.
Right. I mean, it's literally, some of the best ever, right? So I think noir is really hard to define. I mean, people have spent books and books and books doing this, and it is fuzzy. I would probably be harder on it than you. My noir list has definitely expanded when there are movies that I'd seen that somebody's like, that's a noir, and I'm like, oh, I guess so. I mean, like you were pointing out, like blaxploitation versus not. I think we say that Uptight is not blaxploitation because it's not blaxploitation. It's not actually a exploitation movie.
That's the problem I have with it.
Yeah, but of course, if you watch, what is Shaft or Cotton Comes to Harlem or Across 110th Street?
Yeah, or right. Cotton Comes to Harlem. Yeah, those are all those like film noir in my book.
They're all film noir. So like it's very hard. I mean, you were pointing this out to me when we were talking about doing this in the first place when there's going to be 2 episodes. Is basically okay. It's the difference between the classical period and the not classical period is yes, there aren't hundreds of noirs being like poured out like in the 40s and 50s. So it is not the period of noir dominance. But you basically argue noir never dies. And when I look at like my list, I've got there's Get Carter, there's Clute, there's The Long Goodbye, Night Moves,
yeah,
The Killing of a Chinese Bookie, Eyes of Laura Mars. Like it doesn't really end. And or something like The Friends of Eddie Coyle, where like you happen to be deploying one of the great, you're deploying Robert Mitchum, right, who is one of the iconic noir actors.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, it's only been 10 years since like noir peaked. So like, it's not like you're like bringing it. Are you really bringing it back?
Right. Or are you just, dipping back into that? Well, I mean, even at the time of recording now, it's not doing great at the box office, although what is these days, but you have Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho.
Yeah. Which I haven't
full on film noir. And it's right now in theaters.
Yeah. God. I mean, and I missed it in
Well, also just tie that back in. He did Baby Driver, which I adore, which I would put as a musical.
That's actually fair.
Not fully as a musical. It's an action film. It's a heist film, but like it's a musical pretty close right after that. It opens with a musical number.
Yeah.
2 actually, but anyway.
It's we will be going back to the noir well. It's one of my favorites. I think even sort of the combination of noir and capital, in the spirit of capitalism, right? The way that it shapes us in our subjectivities. Hey, I'm in grad school. Subjectivities. You know, the way what we are, who we are, how we understand ourselves in the world, our identities, is there. I wish that I'd found a noir. So many of the noir, because of the way they are, the noir is about corporations. I wondered, for instance, if we ever did like you know, like the Sam Fuller, the Crime USA one, you know, whether I'd be able to make this is a movie about workers against the bosses move. I don't think I would be able to, because most of this is about a lot of this is about the speculative drive as opposed to the relationship between capital and labor, which is, you know, so like I want to find a noir that really exemplifies that particular relationship within capitalism. But what can you do?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm sure that's out there. I just can't think of it off the top of my head.
I mean, I don't know. Is Get Carter him like going on strike against the bosses? I don't really think so. But you know, whatever. You know, the man will get you down if you're a cold-blooded killer. But like you work for cold. I don't know. I'm just like, maybe the Friends of Eddie. I don't know. I probably not. But we'll find it someday.
Well, speaking of going on strike there, Isaac, also a thing we wanted to do now that Noirvember is wrapped up is we wanted to jump back in and do some more contemporary film. We both had been kind of putting off contemporary film for a bit, well, basically since the pandemic kicked off, because it was a little hard to be watching stuff of the current moment that doesn't really address the current moment. But I guess we've been so worn down by that pandemic, we're willing to like head back into modern film territory. One of the films that we are going to go back to check in on for our next episode is called Dear Comrades. Actually, it's got an exclamation point, so I guess it should be Dear Comrades by director Andrei Konchalovsky. I'm probably mispronouncing that last name. It is set in Russia in 1962 and involves workers from a small industrial town going on strike and the crackdown that ensues. It is streaming on, I think, Canopy for sure out there. This guy really fascinates me as a director, even though I can't fully pronounce his last name properly, because I saw a movie years ago at the Cleveland International Film Festival, just went in cold, called House of Fools in 2002 that just blew me away. And then a couple of film geek friends of mine, when I was done, I mentioned the movie to them. They looked up and they're like, "Oh, it's the guy that directed Tango and Cash." And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about? That can't be true." But it is. It is. He's got quite a career. He, he worked with Tarkovsky, co-wrote a couple of his masterpieces. It was like, are you kidding me? And then he worked for the Cannon Film Group in the 80s and made Runaway Train with Jon Voight and Eric Roberts, which I've seen and is a bonkers movie. And it's kind of weird that, Cannon gave him money to make a movie, but it's pretty impressive. And looking forward to checking out a current film that he just made. It was the official submission to the Oscars for 2021. So the past Oscars that just happened this past spring. It was Russia's official entry to the Oscars that year. So we're going to dip our toes back into current cinema.
Ooh, current cinema.
Current cinema.
Oh, strange thing that is.
But before we sign off, we always want to remind you to rate and review the show in whatever podcast app you are using. And if you're enjoying the show, tell a friend or two. We're also up and running on the usual social media nonsense. So check the show notes for links to all of that. And until next time, I am Aaron.
And I'm Isaac. And we'll see you all next time. And as always, stay safe. I hope you're able to get a booster shot. I'm working on it, because, if you're especially on, quote, Team Pfizer,
let's not do that.
Yeah, right. Anyway, the point is that, I hope you're all safe as the holidays, the ones where you're supposed to cram in there with your family, hurtle toward us. Can I also just say that we talked about capitalism, noir, and even Night in the City, and we didn't bring up Nightcrawler.
The Jake Gyllenhaal one?
Yes.
Okay.
I just feel like that actually was the other obvious the other obvious thing that fits, right? And I'm feeling silly now.
It didn't even occur to me.
Yeah, no, it's totally. It's. I mean, one, it's definitely noir. And
Oh yeah, but like with Night in the City, it is. Yeah, I guess that's like his hustle is just, hey, I have a camera, I can go do this.
his hustle is also like, but it's there's a speculative. I mean, it's just noir and capitalism and like creepy guys at night.
Yeah, there is that.